So, welcome to our first Together's event called Myths of the Design Process. This event will last for an hour approximately and will be divided into two parts. So, in the first part, we'll have Ali and Pablo talking about the myths of the design process. So, our goal today is to clear up some common misconceptions we've all encountered. We're here to question the usual, to peel back the layers of the design process and reveal the truths hidden beneath. So, let's welcome them. Here they are. Ali, do you want to get started? Tell us a bit about yourself. Welcome.
Hey, yeah. So thank you so much for having me. My name is Allie Vogel. Patrick said I'm really excited to be here with Pablo and the whole Together gang. I'm actually from Los Angeles, California. And for the last 10 years, I've been a digital product designer and product design lead. I worked in San Francisco and Tel Aviv. And most recently, I started a product design consultancy and studio called Flexxi, actually with someone that I originally met through Pablo and the whole Together and Blush and Bueno and Mucho gang. So it's really cool to be back here talking to Pablo and the whole Together team.
Awesome, Ali. Thanks for reminding me that you still someone from our team. Yeah.
Not a steal, but always happy to poke you about it.
No, hey, Ali, I know you for a while, but I would love to know about, I don't know if you can tell us more about Flexi, what you're doing, and just so people get to know a little bit more about that before we jump into what keeps you busy lately.
Definitely. So the way that Flexi was born was actually from helping different startups and working on different freelance projects. As a product designer and product design lead at Microsoft, I found myself in a situation where living in Tel Aviv, there were always a lot of startups that would approach me and they would ask me for UI advice, UX advice, hiring advice, mentorship advice, and even some of these skills translated to the work that I did with you, Pablo, and some of the different initiatives that you've taken with the company over the years. So I found myself actually really loving this kind of work and found myself in the position where I was doing this for companies on a global level. And what ended up happening was I was approached to work on a project that was just really big in scope. And at the time, Jules Newland, who used to work with you, she was looking for a new gig. I offered her a small project, and that translated into a much bigger project. And as time went on, I realized, wow, this is so much fun. I love working on projects. I love working on projects with different companies. I love helping startups succeed, the biggest and best global companies, and be able to actually translate that to help others find success. And so at Flexi, we really focus on three core areas. The first one is pure product design, plain and simple, in your words, no PowerPoints, no presentations, no bullshit. We just hand you the good stuff. The second one is around mentorship and coaching, working with teams that are maybe one designer or a couple designers or who are looking to really up level, and we help with the mentorship and coaching aspect. And then the third is talent. So doing staff augmentation and also helping companies hire best in class designers on a global level. These are three things that we do and we focus on. And that's what keeps me busy. I'm finding that this is something that's really in need, it's really in demand. So that's what you can find me doing today. And the reason I'm in Buenos Aires is because Jules is currently living here and we have a team of designers that work with Flexi that are based here. So we're just setting up the framework, getting going, and enjoying the beautiful summer on this side of the world.
That's awesome. It's what is the typical food over there in Buenos Aires that you're like? Is it just meat?
That's the empanada.
The empanada. And what kind of empanadas do you get?
So you can get veggie empanadas if you're like you, who's vegan. There's also empanadas de carne, de pollo, as they say here. Next time I come to Mexico, we can compare my Argentinian Spanish with your Mexican Spanish.
Vale, 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 vos. Che. So,
Yeah.
yeah, what are the words that are typical? They're becoming part of your vocabulary.
Well, dale. That is the biggest one. I know
And what
it's
does
not
that mean?
particular to Argentina, but it's like yala in Hebrew. Let's go, dale.
Let's go.
Yalla. That's actually Arabic, but both in Hebrew and the Arabic language, they say that for, yeah, let's go, dale, yalla. So it's
Yala.
it's the
Okay.
new
I,
equivalent.
I want to use yala now for everything. Too. I use dale, or vale, or let's go, vámonos, órale, and also do it now.
Let's go.
Yeah, like that.
Stop with the
Hey,
nonsense.
Ali, you were saying also that I really love that approach that you were saying. It's just like, hey, we just get no BS. We work on the stuff that you need. And also there's like mentoring and helping these teams to do it themselves instead of teaching them to make the bread, and instead of just like fishing, giving them the bread already made, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is one of the biggest things that we hear is that we don't want to work with an outsourced agency. And that's not how we see themselves at all. I actually cringe at the word agency. I hate it. I don't use it. And this is really because we're all about integrating into teams and helping teams be self sufficient. So, like you said, oftentimes with startups, you're like, guys, we have things to do. We can't be bothered with this whole lengthy process. Of course, there's a lot of strategic thinking and background work that needs to go into it. But when you're working with stakeholders, they want the designs, they want the Figma files, like they want to be able to start working. So for us, we always try to find the balance between process and just UI work. And that's something that we're even discovering now with the case studies that we're releasing is like, how do we find that balance between being strategic and really thinking about product work and just getting shit done, as you say. And then
Yeah.
also with mentorship and coaching, right? Because teams, they want to build things in house, they want to be self sufficient. And oftentimes, startups, they don't have the resources to be able to hire the head of design of this super successful company. But what we teach you is the skills that are learned in these big companies. Like, for example, when I worked at LinkedIn, there was a baseline level of just professionalism that we learned, and that translated to any role. And especially in design, it's super important. So these are the types of things that we teach the in-house designers that we work with and also the Flexi designers, right? Like how to set an agenda, how to make sure all stakeholders are aligned, communication, how to present your work in a convincing way that your stakeholders are going to understand how you got to that result without boring them with all these like charts and graphs and other pieces of research. It's just let's be clear and concise in the way that we communicate and we deliver results. And let's have fun while we do it as well, because I think that's also a really important aspect of our day to day. Those are the things that we focus on. Those are the things that we mentor and we teach. And that's basically what we do internally and also externally with the different clients that we work with.
Now, you were saying in the beginning that you cringe with the word like agency, and you've been working at a pretty big company. So I'm pretty sure that working in companies, this thing is not focusing. I suppose you work with. So I want to think that there's the cringing comes from something like that, or why would you cringe?
I think it's more the perception that agencies get, which is we're these entities that are really expensive and we're going to come in and we're going to teach you and show you everything you don't know. One of the clients that I currently work with, they were looking for a new logo design and they went to, I won't name them, but one of the biggest design agencies in New York. And this agency quoted them like $100,000 for a new logo.
Pentagram? I now I want to know. I want.
One of them is this brand designer named Gal Shir, who's based out of Tel Aviv. He's able to deliver really quickly, really amazing work. He's done brands like Lemonade, for example. So we think of ourselves more like a design collective because we work with really great designers from all over the world. And we also form partnerships with independent designers. And I think that this is really a way to be able to get clients just the best value for what they're looking for. That's why I cringe when I hear the word agency because I think it has a bad rap. And so we're trying
Yeah,
to be like the anti agency and really just focus on the core and deliver value.
yeah. I've, I've had good and bad experiences with agencies, and I would say that recently I had really good experiences. And but usually, like before, the teams that I've been working with, here's why. Let me first say why the recent agencies that we have been like fortunate to work with, they've been good. They used to be part of teams, or they used to do their products. They're really involved in the product process and the design process, and they used to be part of other big teams or internal teams. So I think that gives them like an idea of like how there's less misalignment in the
Mhm.
goals that what an agency will have, and also what the internal team will have, that they're more aligned and they feel more like they are part of the team, instead of just like someone like you were saying that comes and tells them this is how things are done. You're doing it
Yeah.
all wrong. And it's more, no, let's learn what you're doing and let's see how we can adapt and let's see how we can work together. Which is something that interestingly that was not the case, or at least I work with agencies that are they usually feel like you can see that they don't have that investment that an internal team will have, and they come with their ideas, and usually they come with They're ideas that maybe work for another client or for someone else, and they want to have that system. Here I am. It's just like it gets out of focus. Sorry. I think it's because I keep moving, or maybe it's because I'm literally out of focus and I'm just like talking a lot of different things. Maybe it's that, and it's just being reflected by the image. Anyway, sorry. I think there's a lot of they come with this one size fits all kind of approach where we have our own way of doing things, and we're just like going to just push you through our way of doing things and trust us because we're a big New York agency and you're paying us a lot of money. You should do what we're telling you to do. And sometimes that can create that, I don't know, even resentment, from the internal team, where it's like, who the hell are they to tell us what to do? Like you're saying, they have a bad rap because of that approach that I think agencies have had. But I see that now that is changing because of people like you or other studios that are more like designers, makers, like the actual developers, the front end, the back end. They're there and they're the ones who start this instead of, I don't know, like nothing against marketing gurus, but like sometimes the marketing guru would just think of a slogan and think that, there you go, I fixed you. Because no, hold on, but we actually have to do a product. No, 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 no. I gave you a beautiful slogan with only 3 words. Go and do the rest of the work. And it's no, we pay you
Yeah.
$100,000. So anyway, I'm saying like, hey, I think that is changing and I'm glad. And there are like agencies like yours. But I do want to touch on something that like it's related and it's about that one size fits all,
Mhm.
where sometimes that one size fits all comes as the design process. And it's this approach of like how to solve design. And this is the way that you solve design. And I wanted to know, since you've been in different companies, now you have your own studio. And I want to know, is there that one solution or is it, what has been your experience about, and also it feels like a cliche, just like you were mentioning the design process now. It's just like, dude, I don't know, for me, it's to just do the thing. If you need a process, it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
But you've been in many different companies, and I'm pretty sure that many have different approaches. Or have you
Mhm.
felt that there's a specific way where there the one way that we should all try to do, or like,
So the whole reason actually that I decided to call Flexi pre starting anything actually is around the fact, to your point, which is different companies have different needs and you need to create some sort of flexibility and flexible solution. Also, I found myself in the position where I needed a more flexible lifestyle, something that was a little more location agnostic. And I realized that for a lot of designers, it's exactly the same case. So why not be able to create a situation where the best designers all over the world can work together and work with different stakeholders that basically need different kinds of solutions. So that's how Flexi came to be. We really like to implement that same flexible mindset way of thinking in every single project that we do. One of the best things I got out of Microsoft, which is an amazing company, and I really only have great things to say about this place, especially the designers there, is that they have two ways of kind of thinking about things. One is a flexible mindset, and one is a fixed mindset. And they really promote this idea of having a flexible mindset or a growth mindset. So when it comes to the different problems that our clients are trying to solve, this is how we like to think about things. Every client is different, and so we need to adapt to that. And when it comes to the design process, some companies are in a different stage of their development. So they need more research. They need more of us to be able to look at the competitive landscape and be able to show them what different products are doing, what works, what doesn't work, and the direction we should go. And some companies have a very clear vision and they're like, we've done the research, we've worked with different stakeholders to get here, and we're actually just looking to execute. And that's a whole different frame of mind. So when it comes to the designers that we would pair them with for those specific projects, we want to make sure that they understand that it's not that we know better than they do. We have different perspectives. And of course, we can do our own groundwork. But when it actually comes to the process itself, we want to make sure that the process is more reflectant of the actual needs of those clients. So when I worked at booking.com, for example, we had a really specific way of working. We worked as a squad. We would go through different phases of brainstorming together, doing design sprints, coming up with ideas, actually voting on the next feature that we would design. And the PM didn't have authority over the data scientist, over the team lead, over the designer. It was a more democratic process. And we would actually build our roadmap together. And at Microsoft, we operated more as a design studio and we were paired with different products, but the PMs really led the roadmap. And when we would start a process of building a new product, if we were at the stage where we just had a document that said, hey, we need to build this like storage solution, we would go through the process of doing a lot of research, looking at competitors, doing more visual research and taking existing products and really benchmarking it there. But I've also worked on products where it was more like execution based. And it was like, hey, we have like really tight timelines and we need to deliver. So yeah, familiarize yourself, but get going and solve these like usability issues that we have. So to your point about the design process, it really depends on where the product and company is. And as designers, there's not a one size fits all. You need to have the emotional and professional intelligence to know where to frame things and how to begin, because otherwise you lose your stakeholders' trust. And gaining that trust is like the most important thing in terms of the designer stakeholder relationship.
Interesting. Now, you were mentioning that some teams, if I'm getting this, would have different needs depending on the stage of like how clear the vision is, how much do they know about their user, how much I think sometimes can be about the project, but I suppose like you seeing different teams, working on different teams and working with different people, is it also based on the people, who these people and their ideas, the leadership, like the skills that they have, I don't know, their biases that they might have and how they want to approach a design? And maybe, for example, I will be someone that's like, I don't want research. I feel like that's because I just want to do stuff and I just want to get deep into, let's just go into high fidelity prototyping. Whereas, no, Pablo, come on, first, this is our way of talking. Oh, I want it all animated. So do you think there's also a little bit of that where it's like the people involved like can also make that variation?
Definitely. And I also think, again, it's back to where the company is. So something I always love to say, and actually I got this from a startup founder, is in startups, you're basically racing against the clock because you have other competitors entering the market every single day or always trying to push new features forward. Whereas in a company like Microsoft, where you definitely have competitors, of course, but you have large market share and you also have the privilege of having many more resources than a startup does. You have the ability to do research, to do iterations, to take 6 months to design a feature and test it and iterate it before it goes into private preview 6 months after that. Whereas in startups, you don't have that, especially like Pablo, what
Yeah.
I see you're doing with everything with AI. Whenever there's a big tech craze, everyone joins the gold rush. And then you are in a race against the clock. So I can understand why, to your point, again, thinking about who the leadership is and really why they're so pressed to either do the research or kind of do it a bit quicker. I am an advocate for design strategy and for kind of thinking holistically about building products. I think that if you go high fidelity or even start developing something without understanding the market and without doing the research behind it and having somewhat of a process, you basically could waste a lot of resources. But that said, the process could be different in a cloud storage large enterprise versus an AI startup that's just trying to get to market as fast as possible. So again, the designer has to have the emotional and professional business intelligence to understand when to implement what and in what situation.
It's great that you mentioned that because I will talk about specifically about Musha and we're building this AI tool for designers. We're actually approaching it both ways. We're going with the research, like research intensive focus just to get better, but also the other approach was let's just put something out there and let's get them to click, get great stuff and tell us what worked and what didn't. And because it's while we're working on something that is totally new and we want to do that research on that because there's not a lot of proven solutions out there on this. The proven solutions are like how design is already made. We're trying to do a design tool that does what design tools have done in the past. But when you are trying to innovate, you have to get yourself out of that mentality and think, no, hold on, this is totally new. approach, and this is new technology, and maybe there's a different way in which we can approach design tool. What is a design tool of the future versus trying to replicate the design tools that already exist? But now it is potentially more, no, hold on, it's really about the technology, but like how that technology really can make a shift in how we approach design problems. But at the same time, we're like, but let's go with the informed decision making too, so we can move fast and just like this foundation of just like people are going to use a product that feels familiar and it's going to be using AI, but also in a familiar way. So there's not a lot of innovation in that. The innovation is just that, oh, but now it's with AI. But that
Mhm.
allows us to just put it out there and move fast. And the only thing about the other thing is that, like doing the research, is that, like you're saying, as with a startup, you want to move fast and you want to learn quickly. And you also don't have a lot of budget to just spend a long time. And also, the market is moving so fast that whatever you investigate and whatever you focus on, like for the next 3 months, it might be obsolete in the next 3 months. Then suddenly you come up with a solution that already someone else is already doing, or that it's just like now anyone can do with ChatGPT, for example. And it's, oh, dude, like we just invested all this time on something that didn't work out. So I feel like sometimes when things are moving uh, this fast, you have to, why not both? Why not
Mhm.
trying to do it the fast way, but also the slow way, and see
Yeah.
where those two things meet?
There's
But
there's middle ground, like you said, and I can think of a couple examples. So, for example, when I was at Booking.com, it's a B2C application. For people that don't know, Booking.com is one of the largest online travel agencies. So, Booking, Expedia, they own a bunch of other companies, but basically, there's two big travel conglomerates that compete against each other.
by the way, before you continue, you were working on AI before it was cool, because I
Yeah.
remember
So
this was like
in
a book.
2018, Booking actually opened a machine learning development center in Tel Aviv because they're like, ooh, people in Tel Aviv can do AI before it was cool. And then they opened up this development center. They contacted me on LinkedIn. I'm like, sounds interesting. I joined. And it was very cool because what they would do is they were looking at more one-to-one personalization versus designing for general personas. So they were really understanding user preferences, using AI to basically serve the most personalized and customized experience. And this is like public knowledge. I'm not sharing anything that's secret. Is there's over 1,000 A/B tests. And so what this means is that you're going to see across the world, across your different user profiling, all different kinds of pricing, components, personalization, because they're doing exactly what you said. They're taking the approach where they do qualitative research and they are looking into new markets and new products. But the name of their game is optimization. So they're looking to just A B test. And then if the experiment, which is what they call their new features, is conclusive, then they release it to their users. And also, they do something called fake doors. And I can give you a tangible example of some client work that I worked on actually with Julieta, Jules, on a loyalty program that we built for a company called AstroPay. That is a global wallet in Latin America. They have a huge presence in Argentina and Brazil and also in the UK. And Jules proposed to build a feature called like a spin the wheel and like a scratch card, a digital scratch card, because she had seen this in other apps and she's like, yeah, this is really cool. We need it. And when we were looking into building this feature, we're like, oh, this is actually like quite an investment for the engineers. We don't even know if this is going to work. To me, it felt very gimmicky. And Jules was like, no, Allie, this is something that people in LATAM love. They love like scratching the cards and getting gifts. And for me, coming from an American perspective, loyalty programs mean spending with points and getting like travel perks. So again, we were coming from different perspectives. And the way we bridged this gap is we said, let's do a fake door test. Let's put the spin the wheel and the scratch card into the loyalty program. Let's not develop the whole back end, but let's see how many users are actually clicking on this. And if enough users click on it, then we build the feature. And we can also maybe give a little survey that pops up asking users to rate if this is something that they would like to have, or give some sort of text free response to say, hey, we're thinking about building this feature. Give us some feedback. Like that's totally legit. And we ended up doing a fake door instead because we realized that instead of doing the investment, let's actually do a small investment in order to see if this feature is even worth building. I don't know if I want to actually build a company. Let me just build a website. Let's run some Facebook ads. Let's run some Google ads. Let's invest X amount of money. And if enough people click on it and request more information, like maybe there's a business here. So I think that's definitely something that a lot of startups can learn from in terms of moving fast and also taking the time to do the research. To your point, Pablo, and I've always admired the companies that you've built because of this, because you're great at just like building things. I don't think I've ever experienced a team like you and Mariana and the whole like Musho team do, where you just like release products really quickly and amazing products. And that's you moving fast. But at the same time, right, it in parallel, you can explore more strategic areas that would cost more to develop or put little signals out there to see, hey, is this something that our users would actually pay for or our users would actually benefit, all while doing the background research and at the same time, just like shipping product to market.
Really interesting that you did work like the fake door thing that you tried with scratch a wheel and spin the wheel, sorry, and scratch.
Yeah.
Did that work?
I just talked to Jules about this the other day, and she told me that a lot of users were clicking on it. From what I understood, this is something that they're now heavily considering introducing full on because they got some sort of signal or indication that users are actually curious about it. So, again, if no one had clicked on it, they could have spent a lot of time and money creating something that ultimately they would have to sunset out of the product anyway.
Interesting. I'm really interested in this whole thing where it's like
Sure.
the two different cultures, you coming from the United States and your partner coming from Latin America, and how their approach was like, hey, no, hold on. You don't understand how we work, and this will work for us. And I wonder if not even just Latin America, but specifically this person coming from Argentina, where the economy is a little bit weird and it's all over the place. Maybe these kinds of things are this instant gratification kind of thing, and this way of seeing an economy behind not just like money, but behind this other way of making money. Because I don't know if I don't know what the state right now is in Argentina, but I know that their coin, what do you call it? Not their
The
currency
petrol?
is,
Yeah.
yeah, the Argentinian peso just goes down, and every day it's just like changing, and not just every day, every hour.
Yeah,
So like they're in a very specific kind of mentality as a
definitely.
culture, and like having that kind of a variable reward maybe makes something that is, I don't know, this unpredictable reward. They're more used to that because the peso is always changing anyway. So
Exactly.
maybe they're so used to that kind of risk that even a risk like that doesn't sound like much of a risk. It sounds like something that they can gain. I'm here like riffing around the idea of why would that work in certain cultures and why it wouldn't. And it sounds like it's something, well, related to something that if an American team came and just without a diverse team, maybe they would have never noticed that, that they would never have that approach unless they did like really extensive research into the culture of people and just their ways of like how they manage money and how they think about money. And before they realized you had someone in your team that already knew that because she understood that. So sometimes it's also good to have, I go back to this idea that you want a diverse team because those ideas sometimes you wouldn't even need so much of a research, or the research that you do it based on something that came from the team, an idea that came because you had a hunch, that someone in your team had a hunch on something that sounded really wild for you. But instead of just building it, you were like, okay, let's try to test it. I'm fascinated by all this.
Yeah. So to your point about culture and research and the design process, I love that you touched upon that because since I've been in Latin America, I've learned how important having that cultural understanding really is. I'll give you another example with Brazil. So when I lived in Tel Aviv, our market was the US, and I worked with a lot of SaaS companies and I worked at Microsoft. So we were selling to the US market. And also, just in terms of tech, Mexico and the US have really strong links. And so there's just a lot of synergy and a lot of similarities there. But when you look at a country like Brazil, for example, if a Brazilian person sees something in English, for them, it's very scammy. Like it needs to be localized there. There's a different culture, there's a different language, Brazilian Portuguese. They don't give two whatevers about the US. Brazil is like 200 and million people. It's its own island in Latin America with its own language and its own culture. It has a huge financial system. So a US based company or another Latin American based company that tries to come to Brazil and build a fintech company or build another sort of platform that might work in Israel selling to the US market or Mexico selling to the US market is not going to work in Argentina selling to the US market. And when you're looking at Argentina, since I've been here a month, and I've seen that the prices change every single day. The salad that you buy one day, a week later, is not going to be the same price. And now, with everything they're doing with their economic reform, the dollar isn't proportional to the peso. So things just get more expensive. Inflation here is wild. People in Argentina have a very different way they manage their finances. First of all, they don't trust financial institutions. So when you're building a fintech app for Argentina, I don't know the first thing about the emotional attachment or disattachment that Argentinians have with their finances. So it's so important, first of all, to get a localized experience. What does that mean? Either working with local designers or doing the research, having focus groups, conducting user research about that relationship. Because otherwise, if I try to build a rewards platform and just copy paste what Chase does or copy paste what Built does, it's not going to work in Argentina. It's not going to work in Brazil. And that's something really important to know as a designer, because it can work in some markets, right? If you're looking at an Israeli company that's selling to a US market. But then again, if it's an Israeli company selling to an Israeli market, people have a different relationship to the way they think about all these things. We can't take this for granted. So to your point about the design process and thinking about how economic and social structures affect all this, that's absolutely something to take into consideration. And that it's something that at the core, we really understand at Flexxi, and having Jules be part of building this and building these products has helped me realize even further why it's so important to fly to Brazil, talk to Brazilian designers. We wanted, with the same client we work with, to expand in Brazil. So I got on a plane, went to Sao Paulo, started messaging designers from Brazil. People were actually open to meeting with me. They thought it was scammy because I was writing them in English, and they're like, who is this designer from Microsoft who's starting this new thing? But I was lucky enough that some people actually agreed to talk to me. And it was so interesting to hear and to understand, okay, if we're going to build an app for Brazil, even if it's the same company that functions in Argentina, we have to use Brazilian designers and people that understand and speak Brazilian Portuguese if we ever want a chance of being successful in this market. So to your point about the design process, in some cases, you can just run in and start working. And in other cases, you can start that, but very quickly you'll understand that you're setting yourself up for failure if you don't have the proper understanding. Again, context dependent. That's very important to say, context dependent on what the product actually is.
Really interesting, Ali. We're about to run out of time, and I wonder if there are any questions. And Patrick, I'm going to give you some time to gather some of the questions from the crowd so we can ask Ali. But I wanted to ask you, Ali, something we've been talking, you've been talking about, hey, I needed to learn about people in Brazil. So I went to Brazil. It is like, oh, wow, that is really cool. I kind of envy. I didn't know that research involved that. That's really cool. I suppose not every team will have that privilege to be able to just like fly someone over there or just get to meet the real people. And I suppose it sounds like you would always have a meet with the people. Now, I'm going to say is coming and AI everywhere. And you can ask these little robots anything and they will have an answer. But I wonder, like, how do you see AI shaping the design process? Because you could have asked just like a bot, okay, tell me more about the state of, I don't know, the cultural aspects of how people see money in Argentina and give me all the historic the context. And then AI will actually do something. I want to know, like, how do you see that? Is this, and, we can argue, oh, but it's not a real person. It's a robot. So what can a robot tell you? But yeah, but all of this stuff and more you that you work with machine learning and these large language models are actually based on real information, are based on the knowledge of the world. And maybe there is something there that can help you. So anyway, I'm just like dropping this question to you. Just AI is coming. How does that affect research and how does that affect the design process in general in the future? How do you see that?
With I think the biggest benefit is the background information we can get from it. So, like you said, AI, how it works is it takes in many millions, billions, even pieces of data, and it comes up, it goes through that black box, and it aggregates and answers. And a lot of that is based on information, and some of it is deduced. So you never really know what you're going to get. And sometimes the information is amazing and sometimes it's a bit laughable, which is why the human perspective is really important in being able to go in and, like you said, ask AI, like, how do Argentinians relate to their finances? What is that emotional connection like? You can get amazing information from that. You don't need to necessarily fly to Argentina to get that information. But I will say there is a level of that human connection that you're not going to get from AI, which is why you can take that background information. You can go on LinkedIn and you can just connect with people, even if you can't go to the place yourself, and just ask for a chat, ask for information and say, hey, I'm doing some research. I'd love some of your time if you wouldn't mind grabbing a virtual coffee with me. And I found that people tend to be really open when you come with a genuine proposal and also
Yeah.
always offering, yeah, let me know if I can ever be helpful to you and maybe buying them like a virtual coffee or something. But if you're coming in with that background information and you're not like, oh, so tell me about finances in Argentina, but you come with some information, some background of their culture. Yeah, I know you had this financial crisis in 2001 and you just elected this new president, Milei, and he's been doing all these reforms. How do you deal with the 50% inflation rate that you had, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? People are like, wow, this person actually knows something. And now we can have a more in depth and more informed conversation. And they'll come at you with a much more familiar perspective. So if you can't fly to a country that is a potential market for you as a designer, you can always go on LinkedIn and try to connect with people. It's a great way. AI gets you 80% of the way there. By the way, I just want to do a little plug with our Flexxi landing page. We actually used Musho as our first draft when we were creating that. So it was amazing to be able to use that tool and then as a designer, go back and adjust things to how we needed it to be for our specific use case, but that really gave us the leg up. So when doing research, when you're trying to just be more effective, whether you work in a huge agency in New York or you work at Microsoft or you're working at a tiny startup and you have or don't have the resources, use the tools that you have available to you. AI is obviously one of them. Talk to people. That's definitely going to help a lot. And just be open to understanding it. You don't know a lot of the nuances and intricacies of that culture perhaps that you're entering or you're designing for. And that's when you need to have this really flexible mindset to understand that maybe some great ideas that you have working in the US market are not going to work in Argentina. And you need to connect with local people and basically do tests and do research in order to get to a great potential final result.
I'm going to add a question from Efarif Net. Hopefully, I'm saying your name correctly. But they ask, do you have advice or insights for a one-person design team? What is the advice or insights for a one-person design team for freelancers in terms of adapting the design process?
Yeah. So I would say get your stakeholders involved. A one person can't do everything by themselves. So I would say people like to be part of the process. Work with your cross functional stakeholders to see how you can manage up and basically tell them what you need from them in order to have a successful design process. So, an example of that could be like, hey, CEO, I know you have a lot of domain knowledge on the fintech industry in LATAM. Please tell me, do you have background information or have you done design research for this specific industry that you can pass along to me that I can start to go through? Or if not, you can say, hey, it'd be really interesting. Let's get on some calls with some potential customers. I'd love you to be part of that. And then we can synthesize that information together and see where to go from there. If it's not the CEO, it's a product marketing manager, it's a product manager, it's another stakeholder, maybe even a developer or the CTO or another co founder. Again, if you're working on a really small team, try to get your stakeholders involved because the more they're invested in the process, the more successful the outcome is going to be, both from a satisfaction standpoint, how satisfied they are with the outcome, and also just in terms of getting to those key insights faster and in a more effective way.
Thank you, Ali, for that response. Thank you for that question. We're a little bit over time, but I'm going to ask the pocho. Is that what you recommend?
Empanada de pollo. Yeah, they're great. There's great ones around the city. Again, if you're a vegan like Pablo, you can have empanadas de, I don't think there's an Argentinian flair to that, but they're really yummy and delicious. And pollo is always a fun word to say. So go ahead and order it.
And do you know what's the best pollo?
What is the best pollo? Empanadas de verdura. That's, yeah.
I love that
It,
Ali didn't understand my joke, but some of you might have the best joke. Okay, I think we're out of time. Is that what you're doing over there? Is
Yeah,
that
but
what people are
busy
like, are you trying to scam me?
family.
Yeah, Ali, just like, hey, give us where can people find you? Where can people know more about you? Do you have any job positions open? I don't know. More, let's do a plug.
So the best way to connect with me is on LinkedIn. Please go ahead and follow us at Flexi Design on LinkedIn. You can also connect with me personally. I see there's tons of questions and I'm really happy to answer any and all of them. And again, if you're looking for freelance work, please connect with me as well. We work with freelancers all over the world. Location doesn't matter. We are looking for people that enjoy this kind of work, doing the research, but also just delivering stunning UI for clients and for customers. So please connect with me if that sounds like you. And in addition to that, we work with startups. We actually also work with enterprises as well, big and small. We work with 10-person startups with one designer and also many hundred people companies that have a design team that are really looking to up level their design and the way their designers operate. So connect with me if you have a project in mind, a way you want to collaborate, even just some advice. I'm always happy to be generous with my time. I look forward to hearing from you, answering your questions that we weren't able to answer right now. I also would love to know the joke that I missed, so I'll connect with you guys offline about that and I'll make sure to post it on our page. And thanks so much
Yeah.
for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Ali. And thanks everyone for joining us in this very casual call. I think we ended up validating the design process. I wanted this to be more controversial. And then at the end, we don't need the design process. Just do whatever you want. I
Left it on.
want an outcome. And then now after this, I'm more convinced like, oh no, we actually do need it. So thank you, Ali, for convincing a non-believer.